She wanted to increase Syrian refugees by 500%. You're telling me that there's not at least a few ISIS members in that mix trying to come in? And do you really think that a goat herder that decided to join ISIS you can put them through some sort of vetting process and know who they are? You're not going to know who they are. There's no record of their existence. So, this is really hypocritical. It is. It's so hypocritical that they would believe something like this. And then the best thing is being anti-war. Hillary Clinton wanted to put a no-fly zone over Syria, basically saying anybody who flies anything in Syrian airspace is going to be shot down by the United States military. Shot down by the United States military. Guess who's there right now, guys? Russia. Russia's there right now. And by the way, they're doing a far more effective job fighting ISIS than we are. Far more effective job. Oh, but Assad's there, and Assad's bad. Yes, Assad's bad. We know Assad's bad. He used chemical weapons against his people. Horrible human rights violations, right? Yeah, I get it. It's bad. He's not a good guy. However, ISIS killed 12,000 people in a month. In a month. I'm sorry, but there is absolutely no way that Assad is worse than ISIS. There's no way. When he was in power, people actually made money. In the current state, with the rebels, the city has been leveled to ash. All that infrastructure, all that business, all that economic gain flushed down the toilet. All in the name of an Islamic caliphate that hates gay people. Now, that's not the only thing they hate. They also hate Christians. They hate Jews. They hate Western civilization. And a slew of other things all of us love. But they hate. So you want to, go and just flat out bring them here indiscriminately? Or not, even discriminately, for that matter. Even if we did bring them indiscriminately, it wouldn't matter, because we're never going to know what their true intentions are. We're never going to know that if we bring in more people from a different faith into this country, that they won't be radicalized by ISIS from overseas. Now, I don't hate Muslims. I hate Islam. I don't. That's my key. I don't blame people. I blame ideas. That's the best way to put it. I blame people who preach bad ideas. I blame ISIS, because I think that ISIS is Islam practiced in its truest form. It's practiced the way Muhammad practiced Islam. He beheaded people. He ordered stonings. He subscribed to Sharia law, a law that's completely incompatible with the Constitution. And most, not most, I should say, but in the Muslim world, you're looking at statistics where, 35%, 45% believe that Sharia law should be the law of the land. I don't want that here. I don't want I don't want there to be 4 male witnesses required for a legitimate rape. I also don't want the death penalty for apostates. An apostate is somebody who chooses to leave the Islamic religion and join the other one. I don't want the jizya tax for non-Muslims. I don't believe in that. And I don't think that can be believed in within our country, because we have constitutional freedoms that protect us from such things. So to say that, and the other problem I have is to say that Muslims aren't going to be more easily radicalized by Islamic terrorism across the seas isn't more likely than a Christian of any color, creed, or race. To say that that's not more likely for the Muslim to get radicalized than the regular Christian guy is just stupid. Of course the Muslim's more likely to be radicalized. That's a no-brainer. Now, I'm not saying they all will be, and I'm not saying that Muslims aren't good people as well. One time my car broke down on the side of the road, and there was a lot of Christians that drove by. But you know who got out and helped me? It was a group of young Muslim men that literally pushed my car with me up a hill to a gas station. I don't see bad people when I see that. I see an act of kindness, an act of selflessness, an act of goodness, as Jews would say, a mitzvah. But to say that in a mosque where there's actually been cases of radical imams radicalizing people in their mosques, or that somebody from a country that we've had a history of being at war with is less likely or just as little likely to be radicalized by ISIS within the country is just a silly statement. And even more so, somebody from that country that is a refugee here is saying that they're, and they're angry at Assad and they see ISIS fighting off Assad. You really think that they're not going to hear ISIS propaganda and to be more inclined to commit acts of terror or to stand against the West as we take them in as refugees? Or that they're not going to blame America for all their problems, which they do anyways? Most Muslims are not very fond of the United States, and they think that the United States has done horrible actions in the Middle East, which we may have. We probably shouldn't have gone to Iraq. I agree with that statement. I think it was a waste of time. I think that we had nothing to gain from going there. We didn't take any oil back. We didn't make the war profitable. We destroyed the land. We tried to sit there and tell them what kind of government's going to work best for them. I mean, that is simply not a sound strategy. It's just not. I can't stress enough how dangerous it's going to be to take in refugees, because these are all people that will be far more easily radicalized than any American citizens would be. Like it or not, a Muslim is more likely to be radicalized by other Muslims than Christians are to be radicalized by Muslims. Because Christians don't believe what Muslims believe. And this has nothing to do with me hating Muslims. I don't hate them. I want to keep them safe. I want them to be safe in their own countries. I don't want ISIS to exist anymore. I want them to live in a country and be as happy as I am in my country. But ISIS is not the answer. And bringing them into the United States is not the answer. That's not going to make Syria better. They're running away instead of solving their problems. And not only that, you think there's a reason that Saudi Arabia, Iran, Jordan took in some, I guess, but won't, or Palestine. Why aren't they taking refugees in? Well, because they're worried too. Because ISIS is known to cause problems and commit terrorist attacks. I mean, ISIS is committing terrorist attacks in Turkey. Why would Turkey want to take in Syrian refugees? Why would any of them want to take in Syrian refugees? I don't see why they would want that. And so the cultures that they would actually assimilate far better in won't even take them in. Yet here's the West taking in people that are easily radicalized, or more easily radicalized. I'm going to use the analogy Donald Trump Jr. used when talking about the Syrian refugee situation. America is a bowl of M&Ms, and in our bowl of M&Ms, we have, poisoned M&Ms, some that are bad. If you eat them, you'll die. That's simple. I mean, we do have bad eggs here. I mean, look at Dylan Roof, that disgusting piece of garbage, decided to walk into a church under racist intentions and shoot a bunch of African Americans for absolutely no reason. Scumbag, death penalty, good night. Which he received, by the way. I don't know if you guys had heard. I hope he suffers in prison very much and learns, because he's going to. But I'd like to just point out that in no way should we add more poisoned M&Ms to our bowl. We shouldn't. Because the more poisoned M&Ms there are, first off, the more other M&Ms they contaminate and poison, right? And second of all, You don't want terrorist attacks in the United States. You don't want more. And they're like, oh, but there's domestic terrorists. I'm like, okay, so there's already domestic terrorists. Why the hell would you want to add more? That doesn't make any sense. We should be cautious. We have a right to say who can and can't come into our country. It's not about freedom of religion. I care deeply about freedom of religion. You have the freedom to practice whatever religion you choose in this country as a citizen. What happens outside of our borders is not relevant. We have the discretion to let in who we want and who we don't want. Let me give an example. If we don't want people with glasses coming into our country because, I don't know, we don't like people with glasses, we should be able to say, no, we don't like you. You have glasses on. You can't come in. There's no constitutional protections for these people coming into, thinking that somehow they have a right to come into our country, as if they own it, as if they have constitutional rights. If they want constitutional rights, they should fight for it in their own country, get it for themselves. Now, I know I sound selfish right now, but I think the real selfish thing is that the Islamic community fails to use basic reason to figure out why we're not letting them in. We're not letting them in because we hate them. Let me make that perfectly clear. We are not saying no because we hate them, we don't like Muslims. We're saying no because we understand that there is an inherent danger in letting in people from a country full of our enemies in. There's consequences of that. Look at Paris. Look at the Boston bombing. Look at the Pulse nightclub shooter, a former ambassador, I believe, to Afghanistan. Or some other Middle Eastern country. I believe it was Afghanistan. Don't quote me on that. I mean, seriously, our countrymen are dying at the hands of some of these people. Why would we add more? Oh, because it'd be nice, and because a lot of them are just women and children. Well, the San Bernardino shooter, one of them, was a woman. And if I remember properly, in the Middle East, during the Iraq War and the Afghanistan War, a common jihadist tactic would be strapping bombs to their children and sending them out to blow up soldiers. Sickening. It's absolutely sickening. It's barbaric. Now, not all Muslims would do this. I'm not saying all Muslims would do this, but there are Muslims that will try to infiltrate the refugee population because it's the smart thing to do if you're trying to fight the United States. That will. And we have to take precautions. That is not our fault that we have to take precautions. We have to take precautions because there's actually people that exist in your culture, Syria, in your culture, Afghanistan, in your culture, Iraq, where people do those things, where they hate the West, where they say death to America, Iran. There's reason we use discretion when we have people coming into our country, because there are certain people we do not want in our country because they want to kill us. Now, I don't understand why there's this huge misunderstanding about this. Who is to blame? Is it us for using discretion and taking note of the obvious death that's taking place in your countries? Or is it the radical jihadists that have labeled you that way that are to blame? Now, I'd like everybody to take a second and realize that. Realize who's actually to blame. Moderate Muslims? There's your answer to your question. You should be mad at ISIS. You should be fighting ISIS. You should not be fighting against Assad. You should be fighting against every single person that makes us distrust you as Muslims to come into our country. Because we will use discretion, and if you're labeled an enemy of the United States, we don't have to let you in, nor will we. Here's a reality check, Muslim world. I would love peaceful people in my country to do business, to participate in free enterprise, to exercise all the constitutional freedoms I enjoy on a daily basis. However, in order to come into this country, you're going to have to make some changes to your culture to make sure that we know that you are not going to come into our country and kill us, like other members of your population have. Now, it's not fair that you've been labeled that way. But you haven't been labeled that by the United States. You've been labeled that by ISIS. They have given you this label. They have given you this stigma. So go and change it. I'll tell you what, if there was a group of radicals going around killing people, blowing themselves up, burning down buildings, fighting a war against a free government in support of religious tyranny, I'm locked and loaded. Why aren't you?